Most of us never stop to think about it. Somewhere inside China's financial institutions, behind steel doors and guarded vaults, sits a number so enormous it almost bends the imagination. $3.2 trillion in US dollar reserves. A sum larger than the GDP of most countries. Yet the real mystery isn't that China holds these dollars. It's why China can't let them go. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on one of the quietest financial traps in human history. A story woven across decades, continents, and choices that reshape the world. To understand why China is locked into US dollars, we must journey back to the early 1970s. America, drowning in inflation and the costs of war, made a radical move. It severed the dollar from gold. The world gasped. Its financial anchor had been cut loose. But instead of collapsing, something remarkable happened. The dollar didn't fall, it rose. It became the center of global trade, a currency backed not by gold, but by America's unmatched economic engine. This moment quietly set the stage for China's future dilemma. China's rise didn't begin with factories. It began with a vision. In the late 20th century, China opened its doors to the world. Villages turned into industrial zones. Workers filled assembly lines that stretched further than the eye could see. And across the Pacific, American consumers embraced it. Cheap goods, fast production, endless supply. For every piece of clothing, electronics, or machinery exported, dollars flowed back into China. Billions at first, then hundreds of billions, until the numbers no longer felt real, only inevitable. China now had mountains of US dollars, but holding raw cash was risky. It could lose value. So China did the safest thing a nation could do. It bought US Treasury bonds, the world's most stable asset. And with every bond purchased, China tied itself deeper into the American financial system. It didn't intend to become the biggest creditor of the United States. But global economics rarely care about a nation's intentions, only its actions. By the early 2000s, something extraordinary was happening. America kept buying, China kept exporting, and the dollars kept piling up. Treasury markets were the only place deep enough to store those dollars safely. So China poured more and more into US debt, until its reserves hit heights the world had never seen. But with greatness came fragility. China was now sitting on a tidal wave of American money. And waves this large are impossible to move without shaking the world. China never chose the dollar because it admired America. It chose the dollar because the world had already chosen it, decades before China rose. Oil is priced in dollars. Cargo ships settle contracts in dollars. Nations store savings in dollars. China walked into a global system built years earlier, a financial architecture where the dollar ruled every corner. By participating in global trade, China was stepping onto rails designed by someone else. Here lies the truth. If China dumped its $3.2 trillion in US dollar assets, global markets would erupt in chaos. Bond prices would collapse. The dollar could swing wildly. Stock markets would tremble. And before China could even finish selling, the value of its own reserves would collapse. In trying to escape the trap, it would destroy the very wealth it was trying to protect. This is the strange mathematics of global finance. Large holders are prisoners of their own size. Imagine having one gold coin, you can sell it easily. Now imagine owning an entire warehouse of gold coins. The moment you try to unload it, the price collapses. China owns the warehouse, and the world knows it. So even if China wanted to pull out of the dollar system, it would hurt itself far more than America. Power sometimes comes from being small, but China is far too large to move quietly. This is the paradox. America needs China to buy its debt, but China needs American debt to safely store its wealth. Two rivals linked by invisible financial chains. Not allies, not enemies, just two giants forced to share the same economic bridge, knowing that if one shakes it, both might fall. A global reserve currency isn't chosen in a conference room. It's earned, slowly, painfully, over generations. America built strong financial institutions, enforced contracts, protected investors, and developed the deepest markets on Earth. People trust the dollar not because it's perfect, but because it's predictable. And in a world filled with uncertainty, predictability becomes priceless. China dreams of a world where the yuan becomes dominant, but reserve currencies require openness, transparency, and trust. Investors must believe their money will be safe, even during crisis. China's markets aren't fully open. Its political system isn't fully transparent, and trust cannot be manufactured. It is earned through centuries. China knows this, and waits. Behind every dollar exchanged between America and China are millions of human lives. Workers, traders, families buying everyday goods. Global finance is not just numbers, it's ambition, it's survival, it's hopes and fears woven into the fabric of nations. This financial trap exists not because of governments, but because of ordinary people trying to build a better life. The larger a system becomes, the more delicate it grows. China's $3.2 trillion reserve is both a shield and a weakness, a symbol of strength and a reminder of vulnerability. Because one misstep, one panic, one unexpected shock could send ripples through the entire global economy. This is the price of greatness. Every move becomes a tremor felt around the world. Could China get out gradually? Yes, but very slowly, very quietly, over decades. A few billion here, a few billion there. But $3.2 trillion is not a number that can tiptoe out of the system unnoticed. It's a number that must be managed, massaged, and contained, as if carrying a priceless antique vase across a shaking bridge. This is the uncomfortable truth for China. By holding so many US dollars, China actually reinforces American power. Every bond China buys strengthens the dollar. Every dollar China holds deepens its reliance on America's stability, and every attempt to escape only tightens the knot. It is one of the greatest unintended consequences in financial history. Great powers do not move freely, they move carefully. China's rise came with a price, the loss of flexibility. When you become a pillar of the global economy, you can no longer make sudden moves. You don't run, you don't jump, you don't push, you balance. And that balance defines every choice China makes today. Every time America and China meet in political tension, somewhere beneath the surface, trillions of dollars lie quietly watching. Neither side ever mentions it out loud. They don't need to. Both know that collapsing this system would be like pulling the plug on the global economy. So the negotiation continues, silent, cautious, unending. The global financial system is a house built on a single foundation, the US dollar. Trade routes, oil markets, shipping lanes, central bank strategies. They all share the same bloodstream. China didn't create this system, but it must live within it, until a new system emerges, one slow decade at a time. Possibly, maybe digital currencies, maybe a new regional system, maybe a shared Eastern Reserve. But these shifts take generations. Empires fall slowly. Currencies fall even slower. And until a new global trust is built, the dollar will remain the spine of world finance, whether nations like it or not. Behind the numbers lives a simple truth. Money is not just economics. It is emotion, habit, fear, and hope. Nations act like people. They seek safety, they avoid risk, they cling to what they trust. And sometimes they stay in systems not because they want to, but because leaving would cost far more than staying. China's $3.2 trillion in US dollars is not just a financial fact. It is a paradox, a symbol of how deeply the modern world is interconnected, whether we admit it or not. Two giants locked in a quiet, delicate balance. Two nations holding each other's future without ever meaning to. And a global system held together by trust, tension, and history. As we close this story, remember this. Financial history is not just about charts and currencies. It's about choices, human choices, that echo for generations. Empires rise on trust. Currencies survive on belief. And the systems we create become the cages we live in. China's dollar trap is not just a financial tale. It is a reminder that in the grand theatre of money, every decision, big or small, shapes the world we inherit. And history always rewards those who pay attention.